We have two images. Take it away, Suraj.
Annadale Wildflower, April 2022.
You know, in creative, you generally find that we have about three different types of categories, or three different types of images. You either have reality seen and presented in a creative way. You have reality that's been augmented or altered somewhat. And then you often have composites, which are collections of images whose bits and pieces have been combined to present a different story or scene. And so, and this image is a good example of the second. Not only do we have simple reality of the flower here, but there's been some blurring done to it as well. And that blurring could have been by intentional camera movement, or it could have been post-processing. It doesn't really matter to me exactly, you know, how is it applied. I'm just enjoying the surrealistic feel of this image. And I think it's very, very effective. I'm enjoying that. There's a simplicity to it with just a flower. I love the fact that there's a softness throughout, both in the flower itself, which is nicely blurred, and the background. And all, I think conspire nicely to give us just a really nice feel for this. You've chosen in this case to give her a sort of panoramic view on that. I don't know if that's quite as required. I think you could probably crop a little bit off from that left and still have exactly the same thing. There's an awful lot of empty space there. So even in creative, the elements of composition are still critical elements because they impact how we like the images. So that's about the only thing I would suggest on this one is I don't know if you need quite as much on the left. You can bring that in a little bit, but I think the overall, the feel of this image and the softness and the texture you've given us are all very nice. Thank you.
A Whisper of Lilies.
Okay, so here we've got reality and maybe with a very slight amount of augmentation. Predominantly the image looks pretty realistic, but we have a little bit of some sort of type of effects at the very top. And I'm not quite sure if there's been some duplication of blooms on the bottom or not. So, you know, it's a little on the hard, a little bit more difficult here to appreciate the creative intent or the creative affect that this image is trying to get us there. And that's one of the things with creativity you got to worry about is that if you do such a good job that it looks absolutely normal, even though it may be a lot of work done, if it looks very, very normal, it doesn't do as well because the creative aspect isn't as evident. And in this one here, and for the majority of the bloom, it looks like an excellent, very nice pictorial image and nice and sharp and everything. But it's on the top and the bottom, we see a little bit of some sort of effects. And so I don't know how strong it is for this kind of category. If you crop a little bit from the bottom and quite a bit from the top, you have a wonderful pictorial as well. Thank you.
Creative intermediate, two images.
Time Wave.
Yeah, so here we get a really good sense of past and present, sort of the dustiness, a little bit, you know, we have this, maybe a paper bag might be the forefront, or maybe a rock formation. We have a lot of paper texture and some buildings behind that. And we get sort of moodiness with it. I think it's all very nicely done. I love the different elements you pulled together in order to give us this affect, give us this feeling, give us this area here. And, you know, the fact that you have all the buildings sort of misted through the mist and through the texture, that gives us sort of a feeling of past versus present, which is all very sharp. So I think your title is excellent, the concept is there, and your execution is done very nicely here, nicely as well. A lot of different elements you've combined in order to give us this feel, and I applaud you for doing that. Thank you.
The Great Escape.
Okay, so here we got Bill. We have all these different birds that appear to be escaping from some sort of enclosures. And whether this is sort of a future type of, you're trying to indicate these were like cages, or maybe one way of looking at it, maybe some other type of something that the birds appear to be escaping from. And the title indicates that that process of escaping from something is a critical element. So here although I may not understand exactly what they are escaping from, the concept is very clear. And now I can just enjoy how you're bringing this to about. And I've done a wonderful job of positioning the birds relative to the enclosures, some totally inside, some partially outside, some just completely on the outside. A lot of good, interesting things done. So a lot of nice work done, a lot of combination of elements, and the overall feel combined does very nicely as well. I wouldn't change anything here. Nice job. Thank you.
Okay. Creative advance for images.
Oh crap, looks like I'm gonna be late for dinner again.
The fun composite. You got a couple of different elements you've added there. The person may be different than the actual scenery, which is different, of course, than your UFO, which is different a little bit from maybe the casting light down there. But a lot of fun stuff that all blends together very nicely. And it just is a fun story. You're just enjoying that. But it blends together so nicely that I think that's a one statement that, this could, aside from the fact that it's a little, futuristic, it still has a lot of continuity throughout the image. And I'm enjoying that immensely. The cant of the person looking up at that is great. I love your title. So lots of really neat things there. I'm enjoying the content. I'm enjoying the story. And I'm enjoying how you piece these pieces together. I wouldn't suggest any changes. I think you did a nice job here. So thank you.
Rest in peace.
Okay, so here, this is a little bit of a stretch for me. The title indicates that there's probably some sort of deceased person in here. And, with that in mind, it may be that it is, we're sort of looking at a corpse in front of us as seen in the rocks. Maybe that's a sunken head there. Maybe that's a skeleton putting towards us, but it's a stretch. And so it really forces you to look at that and wonder if that's what the intent was here. Now, I don't know if it's the intent of the maker to make us stretch that much, or is it that the maker sees it obviously and wonders why everyone else can't see it right away? So these are some of the challenges with creative. Sometimes we get so locked into it, we know what we're seeing, but it's maybe difficult to have other people see it in the same way. That's one of the challenges with some of our creative shots. I think your title does a good service in making that suggestion. So we're looking for something, and perhaps you see it and perhaps you don't. Aside from that, though, I think, compositionally, it's a great image there. I probably would have taken that whole whitish rock on the upper right and lightened that whole thing a little bit, just to see if maybe, and maybe even darken the rock where supposedly the corpse might be. So I'll get a little bit more separation there. That might aid a little bit, but I'm not quite sure exactly how I do that, and I would have to play around. Thank you.
4 times the beauty.
Okay, so here you've got reality that's augmented very slightly, but I love the image of the iris. I love it in the dark setting there, and then I love those gradations that comes out from that. And of course, I see 4 different layers of gradations, which is 4 times the beauty. And so it's just a fun image. First, pictorially, I think it's great. But when you added that effect and sort of gave it a radiant glow type of feel to it, that's another, you're augmenting reality and giving it into a different way. I think it's very effective here. I love the composition. I don't mind the fact that little bits of the flower cut off. I like the idea that there's some empty space there that's been used very effectively. And all in all, just a very nice setting. I also like the very slight pinstripe you put around the edges there. That's always effective when you have an image where the outside borders are predominantly dark. Adding that really aids in setting up where your image stops and the presentation medium begins. So nice job. Thank you.
Peace lily times 4.
Okay, so here's a type of art where we get the replication of an element. This is a very simple element that's been replicated many times. And then you've got a different light treatment in the background that sort of blends them together. So it's I'm blanking at the artist who does this kind of thing. There may be a name for that kind of art. But I think you've done a nice job in replicating that style in your own, with your own example here. And I think that's a very effective way of looking at things. And it's creative in applying your image to that and seeing what you want to do. And I think that's very effective here. It's just a fun image. I love it's bright in the center and a little bit dark on the outside, but that doesn't detract at all from any of the 4 different representations. Just a nice way of showing us something that we don't always see. Thank you.
Creative Masters, 4 images.
Time and tide.
Okay, so, I've seen images like that, and I've actually seen images like this in nature, and I've had to disqualify them because these are not realistic looking images. But I love that you have this here in creative. You're showing this scene, but you're showing it with a little bit of augmentation and some creativity how you shot it, specifically maybe a long exposure, at least in the bottom part, to get that nice soft flow evident. You got a wonderful layers there. You're really giving me this feeling of tableau, but you're adding in some elements due to how you took it or how you process it to give us these smooth areas in the water below there. There's a simplicity to it. I love the layering effect we have here. And I don't mind that half the image is just the shoreline with all the little hillocks. That's an important thing. And I love the fact you have light coming from one side and then some shadowing. And the birds are wonderful. We sort of get multiple effects of birds, some completely there and some partially there. It's just a feeling of the presence of these critters over time. And I think your partial, your not so opaque birds that we see in there give that sense of different times and different places all in the scene. So nicely done. I'm just enjoying the whole affect of it. Thank you.
Fire and smoke.
Okay, so you're using some sort of a filter and artistic effect now. You're really building a story out of something that maybe wasn't as poignant here or wasn't shown here, but you're using these effects towards a goal. And that is to give this feeling of energy, giving the feel of movement, getting the feel of light and dark and hot and cold. Your color scheme and the different types of patterns you have there. I think all together, this thing melts together nicely. And so we really get a fun story. It's sort of interesting to know what this image looked like before you did that. I just saw what you started with, but I really like what you came up with at the end here. I love the fact that you have a very, very dark vignette, whether it's part of the image or you added it, that really closes off the edges and really pulls us into the center, and it being the brightest part in the middle there, it augments that as well. But then you have all these wonderful lines going on throughout there with the treatment that you applied to that. And that really does give you a feel of fire. It does give you a feel of energy, especially with the tree in the foreground too. So all that just conspires to really give us a nice affect. So thank you.
The folding.
Okay, so here, in this image, it's a little difficult to try to figure out what's going on. It's sort of an abstract, but your title implies folding, and you have sort of a folded texture all throughout that. So I'm sort of looking at that saying, well, I'm looking at some folded textures. I'm looking at maybe these are papers, maybe these are something. I don't know what I'm really looking at. But I don't know if that's necessary, but it does add one aspect to this that you sort of wanted that. It's a wonderful abstract in and of itself. There's a nice combination of colors. And I love that monochrome area sort of on the middle left-hand side, which is sort of nice as well. So you have some gradation of color folding in it, coming in and out, blacks and some blacks and whites and lots of different folded textures. So just a lot of stuff to feast on here from your eyes. You can just look around and really sort of meander through it and wonder about what you're looking at and enjoying what you're giving us. I don't feel like I'm lost here. I still find that there's elements I can focus, my eye can center on first, especially the lighter portions on mid right-hand third. There's some bright areas there that I sort of look at first and then go from there. So I think it meets the eye well. It's an interesting image, and there's a little bit of mystery to it that your title only propagates, and I think that's a good thing. Thank you.
Sky City.
Okay, so here's reality slightly augmented, shown in a very different way. We may have, this may be intentional camera movement. This may be you're actually doing some directional blur, but the affect is you're giving this very soft area that has elements, sharp elements of lines in there. And I think that works well. This is obviously, it's clear to see this is an architectural scene of some sort. And so those lines make a lot of sense. We have no trouble discerning different buildings we're looking at. We have empty sky. We can accept that very quickly, which is just leads us to enjoy the scene, its softness and its combination of the soft parts we see there, coupled with the very straight line, sharp lines. I think that combination gives us a nice yin yang for this image. So good job. I don't have real suggestions here. I love your creative bent here and where you're going with that. My kudos for your execution. Thank you.
Journalism Basic, 2 images.
Seattle Gasworks Park, 1 of 3 or 1 of 2? Are there 3 images or 2?
I believe 3.
I have 3, yeah. Okay, remnants of the Seattle Gas Lights Company in operation from 1906 to 1956 create the landscape of the Gasworks Park on the north slope of Lake Union. Seattle Gasworks Park, 2 of 3, the park offers outstanding views of Lake Union and the Seattle skyline. 3 of 3, the park also provides a romantic picnic spot. This couple enjoys a beautiful spread under a waterproof dome that can withstand Seattle's notoriously rainy weather.
Okay, so yeah, in journalism, especially in sequences, the combination of all those offer the lens to tell the story. And I'll be honest, I'm having a hard time seeing how these 3 images conspire to give us a central story. The only things that connects this 3 images together is that it's called the Seattle Gas Works Park. But I don't see the park here. On the next image, I don't see the park. On the third image, the only image gives me park. And so I'm wondering, I don't get a feeling that this is about the park itself. There's just not a whole huge amount of representation about the park. Yet that seems to be the main title. So I feel like I'm a little lost here. I just don't feel it has a lot of continuity and strength. The individual images are great. And if one were, you could say this is images from the park or views from the park, which I think is a more accurate representation. But I don't know how journalistically that is really a strong subject. So, and here unfortunately, I don't get the continuity of these 3 images showing me an event or a centralized place as presented. And so that'd be one of those things that you need to think about a little bit here. Thank you.
Indigo dye, 1 of 3. Extract of the leaves of the indigo plant are dried, ground to a powder, and dissolved in a vat of hot water, calcium hydroxide, and fructose. Resists, stitches, bands, clamps, etc., are applied to prepared cloth, submerged in the vat, then set on a rack where oxygen develops the indigo color from its initial green stage. Successive submersions darken the blue, and when the desired shade is achieved, the resists are removed and the fabric is dried. Rinses in hot water and vinegar set the dye. Okay,
so this series, the combination of them give us a nice view of the indigo dyeing process, from the creation of the dye to the equipment used to it to the final results. And all three of these images bring us along those paths. So there's a nice continuity there. Okay. We do need to get a little bit of the how, what, the what, when, where, why, how, and what aspects to this, which are the hallmarks of journalism. There's a lot of explanation of sort of what's going on, but where is this happening? And what is it rather? How can you make this so what we're looking at is a real critical attribute of some place or some series of some people doing some things? The who, what, when, where, and why are sort of important to try to address in your journalistic entries. This one I think is much more cohesive, and there is a story it's being told. And so I think it's still appropriate for this category. But the actual journalistic events or journalistic attributes that it's trying to show is more of a process there. And so one might say it's not quite as strong in that way. But I think the story that is being told is very effective with all three of the images there. And so I appreciate that. Thank you.
Journalism, intermediate, 2 images, 2 entries.
Shearing, 1 of 4. During spring, farmers gather their sheep to ready them for shearing. This can be done for various reasons, including harvesting the wool, cleanliness, and health. A skilled shearer can keep a sheep calm, allowing them to shear an animal in as little as 2 minutes and have just one solid piece of fleece. This farmer is utilizing the wool, so once removed, it can be inspected for quality and cleanliness. It is then rolled and bagged. Once the adult sheep are sheared, they are released to their pasture.
Okay. So again, we have a process. We have a series of events that are all part of this process of shearing. And I think your combination of images you show here bring us along that process very effectively. I love you start with the animals here. I love the next step where you see the actual shearing. You see some work being done on the results of the shearing and then the animals afterwards. And so you come full circle back to the animals before and after. So I think, again, your process is very nice here, and all these images each are very effective in combining and telling us about that portion of the story. We got here. Now go back one. I like also the fact that you talk about this is what makes a skilled shearer. Not the fact that he does the shearing itself, but the fact that he can do that and maybe not stress the animal as much, and yet he still is very effective at doing his job. That's sort of an interesting aspect to it. We're learning things there besides just what we see. The next shows a little bit of what they're doing afterwards. Utilizing the wool. I wonder what utilizing means. That might actually be an interesting verb that's relative to just the shearing process, but it's not real clear here, although it's just used that way. And finally, you have the animals at the end there. So a nice story to be told. Your images work very nicely at telling us the whole story. And you even managed to work in a couple of babies in the end, and that you can never go wrong with a few of those. Thank you.
Dude, I'm airborne. A young man at the Reading Skate Park practices for an upcoming freestyle BMX competition, October 21st, 2016.
Okay, so we got a sporting event and peak of action, whether it's the actual event or practice is irrelevant. You captured a peak of action for some sort of event. I think that's very effective here. And you did a good job of catching it, midair. You got expression on the people there. I think you got a little bit of interest compositionally that you have the shadow there. I think all that works really nicely. And this is my image, though, I probably would have attempted to maybe darken a little bit the bright concrete. It's just that half the image is really, really bright. And when you darken that a little bit, you might lessen slightly the fact that half's real bright and half isn't, making it easier to take the whole image in. But that's a pictorial issue, although it may help in the journalistic telling of the story slightly. Thank you.
Advanced, 3 images.
Reproductive Rights Rally, 1 of 4. On July 13, 300 plus protesters lined 3rd Street in Santa Rosa to wave signs and chant their opposition to the SCOTUS Roe versus Wade decision.
Oops.
Some activists marched through the intersection of 3rd and Santa Rosa Avenue with flags and costumes. Some used a clever play on words to make their point. Others had a more somber and gut-wrenching message.
Okay, so there's this comment again. All 4 of these images combined together give me a whole feel for this environment, the event that's going on. And I know where it is, I know when it is, I know what it's about. And then the image then is just sort of telling me what it looked like or what it was to experience that when you were there. I think that's a great job then. This image is very effective at giving me an overall view, and I think that's real important. The next image focuses on a unique aspect as being a parade of some sort, a march of some sort. I don't know if it's an organized parade or these people just sort of march through, but it sort of looks like it's organized. Then you're emphasizing the different modes of communication. And finally, at the end, you're closing a little bit with the reminder of the poignancy of the subject material and how this is can be a very poignant subject and a poignant event here. So all those together come together very nicely to give us a good feel of the event, what it was like to be there, and aspects of it. So nice job.
Immersive Picasso, 1 of 2. At the old Armory building in San Francisco, the exhibit's first room presents Picasso's life and work on multiple screens and in framed posters hung on the walls. The next is a cavernous room dotted with the angular shapes where the immersive experience dwarfs one in the work of a master, a powerful and unforgettable way to experience art.
Yeah, we're beginning to see this more and more. I was at the Van Gogh exhibit. I know there's some Oriental exhibits that are showing things in this way. Now we have an example here of some of the Picasso work showing this immersive environment where you're walking through and the paintings are projected all around you. I think these 2 images gives us a good feel. Some of the exhibit is about just these boards where they have information where you can read about different aspects of the life, different aspects of his work, different aspects of his life, and what different parts were involved with at different times. You get a lot of information here, but then you walk into the next room where literally you're immersed in the actual images themselves, which is what we have a nice view of here. And these things are projected on the walls, projected on the ceiling, projected on the floor, and you just walk through there or stand and let it all happen around you. And I think though these 2 images gives us a feeling of both of those experiences, and it's those 2 experiences combined, which is the essential nature of this exhibit. And so here you're actually giving us a good flavor for that. Thank you.
Labyrinth, 1 of 3. Artist Denny Dyke has been creating ephemeral labyrinths in the sand for a decade. He and his volunteers spend 2 hours drawing and grooming these meditative paths for everyone. Face Rock Beach in Bandon, Oregon is the home location for this art. A schedule is posted for the season with opening times. For several hours, walkers can follow the path. There is 1 path through the circles, no dead ends, no wrong turns. Then the incoming tide reclaims the sand and smooths it for another labyrinth on another day.
All right, I think all 3 of these images do a really nice job. And notice that we start out really, really wide on the creation.
Mm-hmm.
That's the role of this first slide. The next slide shows it some interaction of people and talks about how they're walking through that, and you give us a good feeling from that. And then the last image is further another example of the art, another example seen from far, but also talks about the ending of this process with the tide coming in. So you really tie together the life cycle of this in these nice three images. They fold together very nicely there. I'm really enjoying that. Especially this last image here. I think it's really appropriate. It gives me the coastline. It shows me the coast, the water coming in. I don't mind the fact that we have those twigs in the foreground. Those are photographic elements that I'm really willing to look past as not being critical, and they don't inhibit the storytelling. So that doesn't bother me at all. So all in all, I just think you've done a nice job of showing us a couple of different examples of the labyrinths, and you've given us a feeling for the life cycle as well. So all in all, a great presentation of this story. Thank you.
Masters, 4 entries.
Almost 1/3 of parents seem to bend federal ride safety rules to make their child happy. Mott Research, June 2018.
Okay, so here you're really talking about a type of behavior that people are doing and using the image as an example demonstrating that. It's not as much about when, where, and how for this specific event as much as it is for this kind of behavior. So that's a sort of an interesting bent on that. The image itself, one might think that moving the cap up is a way of indicating that he's actually taller than he is, so he meets that. It's a little bit of a stretch in terms of the actual story the image is telling versus the story that the title suggests this would be telling. So a little bit of a stretch there, but one I'm willing to accept in this case. So, thank you.
A highlight of Hunter's Noack concert on the grounds of the Jack London on 5/21/22 was when he invited audience members to remove their headphones and listen to classical music from beneath the piano.
All right, so you're really documenting this event where people are invited to experience music in a different way. And otherwise, I just don't know if I would have understood this. But your title lets me go into what's going on. I'm beginning to enjoy the fact that we really are seeing something as that the musician wants his audience to experience in a different way. That's fun. The image, I think, is great. It gives me a feeling of what's there. It's a nice setting. So pictorially, it's a very interesting shot. But the story, I think, is very effective as well. So good job. Thank you.
Final moments of a saddle bronc ride, 1 of 4. 4 seconds into the ride, Brian Oritz is showing good form. He needs to stay on 8 seconds to qualify for points. At 6 seconds into the ride, he is fighting gravity. At 7 seconds, he is down. At 8 seconds, the bronc wins. 2022 Russian River Rodeo, Duncan Mills, California.
Fun. So here we have this athletic event. You give us a nice propagation of things going through there. Reminds me of the statement. It's sort of an example of a slow motion train wreck. You get this event going on. You know what the ultimate conclusion is going to be. It's inevitable. And so you've given us these multiple shots that give us different stages in that event. That's sort of a fun thing. I like that. Photographically, each of these shots are exquisite. A lot of fun here. And I love this shot in and of itself. The next one begins, it tells the story of, it didn't work so well. He's got a little bit of problems there. And then the next two are the aftermath of that. And so all the story is there. I think all these images are very good in their own right. And I think all of them have a place in this sequence to move the story ahead. And so I like that as well. I don't know if I would have changed much there. You did a really nice job of combining the right images at the right places to move the story from start to finish. Thank you.
Women of the Samburu tribe discussed women's health issues with 2 Americans from the Samburu Project, an NGO focused on water issues affecting females in remote areas, Kenya.
Okay, so, a single image that is really showing this event, I think pictorially, you've captured it very nicely. You're showing the interaction of these people talking with the Americans there. You got the different kind of the dress there. They aren't dressed up to show off things. They're there to do some work, and they're talking that. And I think, and you have a nice indication of that one person talking with a hand gesture, which really, and everyone else looking in the same direction. So that implied communication is really nicely captured here. But the only thing I might do is maybe indicate the date where this was and where this was specifically. Again, journalism, think of that: who, what, when, where, why, how, and try to see if you can't get as much of that indicated within your image and or your title. Thank you.
Monochrome, basic, five entries.
Curious finds at Bombay Beach.
Okay, so a really interesting view here. Initially, you look at that. The very first thing I do is I look at that middle, and I see sort of maybe that's a vertebrae. There's a sprocket there, and then I begin to realize there's other stuff there. And now all of a sudden, it makes a lot more sense what these curious finds referred to. This eclectic collection of things that are just found. And one thing I think is a strong point is you have that interesting head on the upper right, which projects up and towards us. So you have a sort of a sense of depth with the clarity of that versus thing in the distance. Tonally, I think you got an interesting collection of tones there. I don't find that the background is competing with the main subject, and yet there's still this interesting eclectic collection of stuff. But I think your title just explains that away, as saying these are just curious finds, and here's how they were portrayed. Thank you.
Strolling in the redwoods on a redwood.
Okay, this image is a real challenge in terms of monochrome. One of our main objectives of our monochrome images is to try to get our subject to be separated from the background and the environment around it. And this image has a bit of an aspect of Where's Waldo, because our subject, it really blends in with the surrounding around that. It's not distinct at all, and so it's very difficult to see. And so I think the concept of that person strolling is front and center. That's positioned in the image. It's nicely framed, but then the person blends in with the background. And so you lose much of the power of what this image was designed to show. That's one of those things we have to look out for in monochrome. Since you don't have color to aid in the separation of your subject from the background, you need to use tone quality and clarity. And here, I just don't think that works sufficiently. Thank you.
Searching.
So here is this I really do like. The subject is absolutely clear, very distinct from the background. There's a lot of wonderful, very subtle texturing in the water and in the sky. There's the tone qualities are just very gentle. You don't have a lot of really strong blacks or very, very strong whites, although you do have some whites and darks there. And so I think your tone quality is fine, but there's sort of a softness to this as well. So you've given us a wonderful atmosphere. Not only that, but you've got us in that mid-motion where you have that the beak hitting the water and that concave cavity where the water's going there, and that interesting reflection with the ripples as well. So all those conspire to make a very pleasant image here. There's a simplicity to it, but there's a lot of complexity that I'm really enjoying this image as well. I wouldn't change anything. I only wish my images were as good. Thank you.
Boulevard Barn.
Okay, so, here we have some of the issues in terms of the separation of your subject from the background, especially on the right-hand side, where the edge of the barn almost blends in entirely with the background. But aside from that aspect, you have some textural qualities that really aid in that separation. I love those white streaks coming down from under the eaves and under the top area of that whole barn. That really separates that roof. The texture of the willow tree that's on the tree that's on top of the roof. There's sufficient texture differences, and there's an empty space in there where we can see that separation. On the upper right, the dark wood behind the roof is nicely isolated, is darkened and very separated, as is the very bottom, nicely separated as well. So the barn structure comes out nicely. There's enough differing textures that you can tell the things apart. And so your story is very effectively told. Yeah, on the stuff on the mid right, I probably would have darkened that a little bit to get a little bit more separation. Having that foliage on the fence line being absolutely clearer, I think you could afford to darken that, get more separation, and that would make your subject pop a little bit more without losing the overall feel. Give it a try and see what you think. Thank you.
Bike and a box.
Okay. Yeah, fun stuff. I love the simplicity of what you have here between the mailbox, the sign, the actual letterbox itself, and then the little bike there, nicely positioned, nicely separated, easy to see. The background is a little on the soft side, which is good because then it's nicely separated. But the only change, if this were my image, I probably would have lightened up that letterbox a little bit more. Yeah, I would try to make that a bit brighter so it would be separated away from the dark trees behind it on either side. Right now, tonally, they sort of blend together. Lighting that letterbox just a little bit would make it stand out as much. Your title tells me the bike and the letterbox are critical. So I want to bring them out just a little bit more. And that's the way I would probably approach this if this were mine. Thank you.
Intermediate, 2 images.
Tracks in the sand, Susavale Dunes, Namibia.
Fun, simple, nice. You have a nice yin yang effect. You have the effect of the atmosphere smoothing the sands out and the dune type of things, and then the effect of a living creature walking by and leaving their tracks. And that combination is a nice yin yang type of thing. I'm here in this monochrome. This is all predominantly the sort of light brown oranges type of tones, but it's uniform throughout the whole image. So it definitely is an appropriate monochrome entry. I think the composition is great. I am enjoying following the undulations in the sand and then seeing how they interact with the tracks. So nicely seen and nicely captured. Thank you.
Ring-billed gull takes off with a splash.
Yeah, nice. Good job here. We really caught peak of action. The bird itself is nicely separated from the background, but there's a lot of character in the ripples of the lake as well. That splash, midway with those little droplets are just wonderful. I love the angle it's from there. And the background, it's nice to see that there's stuff behind there, but none of that actually forms a nice setting for the gull to exist in and doesn't compete with that. And finally, you have that interesting reflection. And in this case, I don't mind the fact that it's a little bit bright on the bottom. I'm really liking how I'm pulled in the middle. And so I don't think you really need to do anything else to bring our attention there. There's enough detail in that gull that I can see all the detail, nothing's blown out, and everything's as sharp as it need to be. The legs are a little on the soft side, but that's okay. It's motion going on. So that seems very consistent and doesn't bother me at all. So nice job. Good capture. Thank you.
Advanced, 4 entries.
Gathering at the refuge.
A whole plethora of different birds. There are a couple of different types of egrets and birds there, some standing, some sort of looking at the water, pecking at the shore, others flying, a combination of things. It's I think it's probably the exposure is probably good. Exposure is probably a little bit bright. These are so hard to shoot because they're so bright. For the most part, you've done a really nice job of giving me detail in all the birds. The one in the flight, as we look at the back of those wings, we're losing some detail there. And my thought here is I probably would have taken that one bird and tried to increase the contrast a little bit and maybe darken it to bring out a little of the detail. I think there's detail there to be captured. It's there in your image. Whereas the rest of the birds that are all looking in one way, almost every one of those birds, I get a lot of interesting detail in the wing structures and on their necks. And I think that's important. Other than that, the composition of these birds, the reflections and how they fit in the environment is all very pleasing. So nice job. Thank you.
A rock climber finds a handhold.
Okay. First, wonderful peak of action shot. You know, I love the lighting you have in here. And you have that ridge line he's climbing on, and half of it's really light and half of it's sort of dark, but it's not absolutely light and absolutely dark. There's a lot of detail to be seen there. Though it is somewhat of a gray shot. And I would have been tempted, had this been my shot, to maybe increase the brights a little bit. And I'd probably hold the darks about the same, but it's pretty, we have this grayish tone throughout the whole image. And I'd sort of like to get that either that rock climber to show up a little bit differently than the gray tones on the rock face, or to make the rock face gray tones slightly different that I have there, to get separation between these two. I think in doing that, if you did it slightly, it would aid in trying to make these things come out, separate out a little bit. The rock climber would separate a little bit more from the cliff, but not disrupt the wonderful shading you have here or the peak of action that you've so effectively captured. Thank you.
City lights on the Hudson River.
Good, just fun shot. I'm loving the darks, I'm loving the lights, I'm loving how you've used the building lights to really highlight them. Your sky, I wonder if this is maybe a longer exposure, maybe not. But the sky is nice, soft with some striations. Yet the people, I don't see a lot of blur in the people, which is why perhaps it wasn't a long exposure. But it's a nice shot. I mean, nice composition. You got some interesting parts, and the empty space that we see, especially on the upper right, serves nicely to counteract the building. So I think there's a place for that there. I would wonder, do you need that bright little plane or whatever it is, in the upper right quadrant? You have that really bright spot there. I wonder, is that needed or not? I'd go back and forth with that. It sort of adds a point of interest. It is in a PowerPoint, but if that were gone, would that make this whole thing blend a little bit more? Something to think about. It's a real minor point. I do love the reflections of the bridge lights on the water, and kudos for keeping that in there as well. So nice job. Thank you.
In the Everglades.
Okay, fun one. I'm enjoying this. These can be very difficult shots, as we talked about earlier. When you get a lot of activity going on, especially in monochrome, it's very hard to isolate your subjects. But in this case there, I see that the water and the ground is very distinct from the trees or the roots. I guess these are banyan trees, perhaps. But these multi-rooted trees, they're very clear. And yet all the branches and the plethora of branches there are predominantly all lighter than the trees. And because of that, I can isolate. They become a different element at a different place relative to the tree trunk. So there's separation there. And I don't find that, yet they're busy, but I don't find that everything is blending together. All those branches seem to be uniquely positioned relative to that. And therefore I'm enjoying the different layers I see in this effect. Very effective here. And I'm enjoying it immensely. I'm sure that was natural how you happened to shoot that. I'm sure you didn't try to select all those branches and lighten them, but I think you just had a good exposure and a good positioning that allowed this natural gradation of tones to occur. Thank you.
Monochrome Masters, 7 images.
The macabre.
Had there not been that one line going through about the middle that I can indicates to me might be a rope, I would really have a hard time trying to understand what this was. Because I see that rope there, or I believe it's a rope or cable of some sort, and then I see its shadow, I'm led to believe that perhaps we're looking at a rock cliff and a crevice here, and perhaps it's called the macabre, but I don't really know that. Or is the macabre your statement on the difficulty of this? The clarity of what that title means relative to the image is not as strong to the viewer who doesn't know exactly where this is or the name of this feature. There's almost a abstract quality to this, because aside from that rope, I don't see anything else that's demonstrable to indicate that this is a cliff or that this is a place for climbing. And I would almost wonder if it's maybe paper I'm looked at, because there's a lot of texturization that appears in this image. So think about these things. You know, I think the message you're saying, the message you're giving with this image, the vision you have there is a little bit on the muddled side. And because of that, I tend to interpret this as an abstract. Thank you.
Wind blows sand across the Ibex Dunes, Death Valley.
All right, this is a fun shot, or a shot I'm really enjoying. I love the variety of textures we have. You did a wonderful job of demonstrating the wind effects and the blowing sands at the bottom. You have that smoothness of the dune taken at a late afternoon, possibly, or early morning, low light, which is now giving me these wonderful shadows in the midground. And then you have two levels in the background, both of the hills, and where we have a little bit more clarity, a little bit more detail, and then the far background where it's now gotten very hazy, which again makes a lot of sense when there's wind being blown, and it might be a little on the misty side or a little bit on the just due to the fact you have blowing dirt in the air. So I think you got some wonderful collection of textures here that give me a sense of depth and allow me to really just look at the scene and appreciate the variety of textures that I encounter, the variety of features that I encounter as I go on through the image. You know, I think the tone qualities from monochrome are fine, and I love the story. So I think all in all, great. Excuse me for a second.
Lake Knight, North Dakota.
Thought I was about to sneeze. Okay, a wonderful image, very simple in terms of its subject. Very nice. And in this case, I'm not bothered by the fact that it's about a 50-50 shot. Yes, your horizon line is really in the middle, but you have that the church in its positioning really sort of changes the whole balance. There are wonderful leading lines of the road leading to the side of the church is excellent. Interesting textures in the foreground, and a different type of textures and interesting features in the sky as well. Here it's really up to the maker. Do you feel you've seen enough detail in the building? You know, initially I would think to myself that perhaps I would, but the more I look at it, the more I sort of like the idea that you haven't made that building absolutely clear. There's sort of a little obscurity to that in terms of darkness. And I think that fits in this case. So I'm sort of enjoying that. Lots of nice stuff here. I like the subtle pinstripe around the edge as well. I love the composition. I think the sort of panoramic type of view, or the aspect ratio, is very effective. Gives me a sense of emptiness, which is part of the story. I think you very nicely conveyed that here. So nice job. Thank you.
Vertical, horizontal, diagonal, and circular.
Yeah, I love that. I love the fact that you just restate the obvious in a way that gets me to look past what it is to enjoy the shapes that you captured. And not only are these different types of shape captured in form, but in tone as well. I love that diagonal with all those sort of oblongy type of bright marks in there, right next to these rectangular dark areas, and then a nice bordering all around those. You know, the different texture between the wall in the foreground and the texture on the building face versus the texture of the sky, all very different, which isolates these things from one to another, add a lot of interest. And I love that your title just says, what's important are these shapes, go find them. So I wouldn't have changed anything here. I think it's well seen. The composition is very clever in how you've done that. I kept moving composition around a little bit when I started looking at that, and I couldn't find any way of doing this better than what you've done here. So nice job. Thank you.
King of Wings.
Okay. First, you got this wonderful geographic or geologic shape here, and that's neat. You've given us a person there, which gives us a sense of scale, and that's nice. You have a wonderful, nice, clean background behind it, but it's not purely empty. There's a wonderful gradation of tones, which I think is very effective. And so I'm enjoying all those aspects. But the only thing that bothers me a little bit is that the sort of wing-like structure there, that rock formation, is so bright that it almost looks a little unbalanced. Just looks, had it been mine, I probably would have selected the white areas on the rock and added a little bit more contrast and brought it down just a little bit. It just looks so bright here and it looks out of place. And by darkening the grays a little bit, maybe bringing down the whites just slightly, it may end up blending a little bit more without sacrificing uniqueness of place and the uniqueness in terms of the concept of the image. Thank you.
Reflections in a Window, Bodie, California.
One of these kind of shots where there's layers and layers and layers. And the layers of the environment, which are the reflections, are very nicely clear. You see a lot of the Bodie buildings. You see a lot of the open skies, the clouds coming out of the Bodie. And I think that's very effective. And then you have, I believe it's probably a mannequin and then some things happening on the inside as well. But where one starts and the other stops is a little difficult to see. So it's almost an abstract. It's almost that you're forced to really work hard to try to figure out what parts are due to what. And perhaps that was your intent, and that was the thing you liked most about that. I see that as a seminal part of this image, is that you have these layers, but they aren't so evident. And you sort of have to look hard to try to say what things are part of what parts. And so you're spending time looking at that. It's not an easy, simple image to relax into. It's one you got to work on. But I'm not convinced that that wasn't done intentionally. And in that aspect, I think it was successful in doing that. Thank you.
Lake Albert, Oregon, May 10th, 2022.
Wonderful scenery shot. And I think what really makes this shot is the wonderful the clouds and the different types, the way those clouds have all sorts of different shapes and toning throughout there. A lot of smoothness there, a lot of interesting texture. We see it mirrored into the lake. I love that the dark hills are really dark, right where the dark clouds are. And yet as we come forward, it lightens up again. So we sort of have a reverse vignette going on here, but I think that's effective. You got an interesting, the lightness of the shoreline makes it very easy to follow that through. But all in all, just a really nice rendition, both of the lake, the environment it's in there, and the weather that happened to be happening at that time when you were there. Nice communication. Thank you.
Okay, we'll take a 5-minute break. We've covered the first 3 categories. We have 2 more to finish tonight. I'll stop sharing.
Okay, I'm going to walk away just for a second here.
That's a lovely group of images.
Yeah.
Great.
Great. What's it feel like to be back, Jack?
Feels great. Lots of images. It's a lot different than the in-person meetings, but it has its advantages too.
Does anybody have any questions for me while we're waiting?
I thought you did a great job, really. I like the critique.
Thank you. Anybody sitting there scratching their head going, what the heck is he talking about?
I have a question, a comment. I guess it's not really a question, but so has there been any discussion on the N4C level about giving more guidance on what creative really means?
Scientists now believe there are small creatures invisible to the naked eye.
Trish, are you there? I don't see Trish.
No, she isn't.
Okay. It's just Trish Brown has been involved in the rules committee. I do know that one thing I'm going to be part of is that we're thinking about putting together a guidance.
Somebody is
document.
talking in the background and it's kind of distracting, so.
Yeah. There's no talk about changing or modifying the rule. There is some discussion about putting together a guidance document but one's got to be very careful in a guidance document that the guidance document doesn't become a rule.
Right.
And so, and I know there's a fair amount of discussion around nature category, which is what the predominant changes have all been about. But, creative is specifically left rather vague to allow creativity. And Joe, yeah. Go ahead.
That hasn't really changed. Creative is the same as it was last year. The only thing that's changed is the preamble, which is substantially different. And the nature category, there's some rewording, but there's not really much in the way of change.
But at the moment, we aren't considering changes to the creative category much. But, very difficult to talk, now in a guidance document, you may give examples of the kind of thing. I like to mention, and this, I do this for a reason, the three main classes of creative I see. Because the first one is reality seen in a creative way.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to do any fancy processing or do any fancy compositing to have a good creative image. If you see something in a very different way or present it, that's creative.
Mm-hmm.
So if you find it's a little bit on the vague side, I think that's intentional. But it's worth it.
It's clear to me. I don't have any, I'm not confused, but my comment is just that I often sit here wondering to myself, why does that belong in creative as opposed to pictorial?
Mm-hmm. And there's overlap. If you show reality in a very unusual way, that could be pictorial or creative.
Mm-hmm.
It's not an absolutely cut and dry. And neither are our rules absolutely cut and dry. And that's by definition, that's by design.
I was going to say, there's an article on N4C by one of our older members, longtime members, about creative. And one of the things she said in her article was, yeah, creative is difficult, but there, as she put it, there are levels of creative. And it's up to the judge to distinguish between levels of creative. That some things, some pictures, they may meet a creative definition. But I remember when I was young, I drew a blue, I colored a elephant, I think it was a cow, blue. And I guess it was creative in a sense. And the Sunday teacher basically didn't think so. And I think about it now and I say to myself, you know, if I have actually kept within the lines, maybe she would have said different. But I didn't keep within the lines. I liked it. But if someone not only drew a cow from scratch and colored it green within the lines, that's definitely a level of creativity that is steps above mine. And I do think that it is responsible to both our review committee to try to interpret creativity as best they can by our rules, the N4C rules, by the SRPS rules. And it is the job of judges to try to define creativity really at levels, whether it's a 10 out of 10 or a 2 out of 10. That is,
Joel,
go for it, Charles.
there's no guidance anywhere for the judges to do that.
I agree.
And so to me, for me to say this one is more creative than that one is outside the scope of what I'm asked to do. And it's tough. But now, had the rules say the judge should consider levels of creativity in their discussion, that'd be one thing. But there is none. So if I start saying this is more creative than another, then I'm putting a personal judgment in there, which is a judge I try to avoid doing. What I do try to talk about is this image is more effective at giving me this creative vision I see expressed. And so I will try to talk about how effective the vision I see in the image is being portrayed, rather than casting judgment on how creative it is, because now we're getting into personal preferences, which is you can't help but end up with in creative. So it's a tough balance there.
Well, I have to
You do
admit,
it well.
this is this is a topic that really,
It's a good topic.
Yeah, great topic. However, let's Bill, to you.
Let's get back to business.
Yeah. I will say this, Joel, it's worthy of having the conversation.
Absolutely.
And I whether you agree with me, I love having the conversation. So that's great.
Okay, pictorial, basic, 4 entries.
David Snowy Sunday Walk.
All right. So here we have an image that has a lot of really muted tones here. And I think these muted tones conspire to really give us an atmospheric feel. I don't know if any of you have lived in a snowy area in the northeast, but this is not atypical kind of feeling you get there with the snow on the ground, the blandness, the empty trees, the areas with the stark differences in light. That's very reminiscent of kind of the way you can experience many of the days. And this image does a great job of portraying that. So I'm really liking it. It's not a monochrome image. There's definitely multiple colors in there, and that's fine. But I love the mood that you created there. You've done a nice job of putting some of the waves selected at in terms of your composition, the leading lines that run through the image as well, especially in the walk on the left, the person there, the bordering of the trees is very effective. We sort of lose a little bit of what's going on with the water in the lower right. We see a shoreline, but it's sort of hard to figure that out. But you know, that doesn't bother me because the mood of this whole image is so poignant. And I think that was your intent. Thank you.
Ribbons of bark. Bark has finished protecting the tree. Now it's peeling as part of its cycle.
Okay. Yeah. And this image, you could have easily just called it ribbons of bark. Stop. You know, but I think you did a good, I'm glad you went ahead and indicated that there's bark here, because now I'm no longer asking the question, what is this? I'm going, oh, look how she's managed this. The person has managed to show this different bark and the different forms, and then I can see the shadows on that. So your title did a good job at setting the expectation when bark was here. I'm no longer asking the question, what is this? And I'm enjoying the image. I think you did a great job here. Lots sorts of different tones here. You know, there's some light parts around the edges as well, but in this case, I don't think that really is deleterious to the image itself. And I like what you have here. I don't know if I would change much here at all. I may actually, on the lower left, I might tone down that light part right down there. I don't think you need it as bright there. But toning that down a little bit, I think about maybe the only thing I might change. So nice job. Thank you.
Storm over Tucson.
Good capture. I mean, this is not easy to do, and you did a great job there. Great exposure here. You know, you chose not to purposely bring up the exposure on the, which you could easily do in Lightroom or Photoshop, in the hill with all the houses, but you're just leaving the little bits of light speckled all throughout there to indicate what's there, and so you're allowing just the lightning bolts to speak for themselves. Nice framing elements with the clouds. And I was really enjoying the fact that you left this as a color image. I really like the speckles of color all throughout that bottom third. It's very effective. You know, capturing the lightning like you did, not having the lightning being too overblown such that it isn't just a blast of color, but there's a lot of distinction there. All works together very nicely. Now, one could actually crop in significantly on all sides to focus more on the lightning bolts and still show the message, but I think that's a personal choice more than a recommendation that it would make you better. Thank you.
Taking a break, Colorado, 2022.
Fun. I think you actually have 4 different species here, 2 different species of birds and 2 different species of turtles there. And so fun example, each on their own island, nicely seen, good separation of the ice, of the little rocks with the animals on them versus the water. I think it all works out very nicely. You have those shadows going on, or I'm sorry, not shadows, reflections going on with the birds. But the only thing that I think, you know, if you had moved, oh, well, I don't know. You do get a little bit of the merging of the reflection of the largest bird with the turtle. And that's about the only thing that compositionally bothers me a little bit, is that we're losing a little bit of distinctness of that. But that might be a minor point, and that, you know, a step in one direction versus the other, you might have been able to address that a little bit. Probably if you had taken 1 or 2 steps off to the left, assuming you could, might have separated the turtle from the reflection. But aside from that, just nicely seen, enjoyable shot. Thank you.
Intermediate, 2 images.
Rhythm in blue.
All right, so here we have a texture shot, and it, you know, other than the fact that it's wood and there's some textures going on, there's some repeating lines throughout that. Just tell, you know, I don't need to know much more than that. Your title tells me that repetitive rhythm is important. regardless of the angle. Blue's important. So given those, just enjoying the texture and the different angles I see, I can sit back and just enjoy the shot. And I think you did a nice job in your composition. That central element is very unique from all the areas around that. So there's something for me to focus on a little initially, and then other areas that are unique that I can start wandering through. So just a fun image, well seen, and I'm enjoying it immensely. Good job. Thank you.
Sunset at Nambian Waterhole, one of the many waterholes in the 8,598 square miles of Etosha National Park, northern Namibia.
Okay. More information than we really need with this kind of image. It's very artistic the way it is already. I'm enjoying that nicely. Now you do have an awful lot of sky here. And yes, you have the gorgeous gradation of color from the horizon line to that line of clouds that is giving us the pink into the oranges, and then up there through the moon into the rest of the sky. I wonder if you need quite as much of the sky in the top. You'd probably bring that down a little bit and not lose the overall affect. As it is now, almost 2/3 of this image is pure sky, except for that one tree. And there is a feeling of vastness there, but I think you could cut down the sky from the top a bit and not disrupt the overall feel. Aside from that, though, having that lone tree there against that horizon line is excellent. The two antelopes drinking are excellent. I love the reflection of the color on the little pond. Actually, 3 antelopes, maybe 4, maybe 5 as I look. Oh, well, bunch. I love the pinkish reflection on that water, and yet we get a lot of interesting detail in the landscape as well. So all in all, put together, nicely done.
Advanced 9 images.
A Boy and a Dream.
All right, that classic picture of reminiscent of the immigrant looking at the Statue of Liberty. Here we have the young boy looking at that. And I think it's just nicely done. You know, it's nice you didn't have the boy totally in silhouette. Even the railing he's got his hands on isn't 100% silhouette. We see in detail. I think that's effective. You know, I'm enjoying the Statue of Liberty and the scene he's looking at as well. It is pretty bright in the top. And in this case, I don't know if perhaps the slight vignette might have actually eat away a little bit at the real bright nature of that. That would be something I would have to just try and see. It wouldn't have to be too dark. But there is sort of a yin yang with the bright versus him. It's a little bit jarring. But I'm not sure in this case whether that can be addressed or whether that's just intrinsic in the image. Thank you.
A fog bank obscures the sunset.
Okay, you know, great shot. I love the capturing of that fog bank with the sort of the bank quality of it, the wall quality, the differential light we see on that, how it's lit from the top and it's yet shadow on the bottom, or just the clouds. I think that's very effective. The composition is great. In this case, that cloud bank overbalances that the sky is 50%, so that's fine in terms of the horizon line in the middle. You have enough dotted rocks in the water that it breaks up that area very nicely, and wonderful capture of the different wave action going on throughout it as well. But the other comment I notice is around every one of those rocks, at least in mid-range there, we have a white halo. And that might be due to your processing, that might be intrinsic with the image there, but those are the kind of things I would work on at trying to eliminate. And there are ways you can do that that's not too onerous in Photoshop. We can take care of that and make that just so it isn't, you don't have this distracting element. Finally, but the last thing, if you were to change the composition, I might try to raise myself up a little. Notice how the horizon line just barely touches that rock on the top. And getting a little bit more separation of that horizon line from the top of that rock might actually build the composition up just a little bit. Thank you.
The Great Blue Heron in the Morning Light.
lot of interesting character in this shot. Not only do you have the character of the bird, but we have this really deep, dark, and vibrant colors. You have the green colors there and the bluish colors of the bird. It almost looks a little bit on the oversaturated side. I could be wrong. And that, just picking that light up there just right might actually have brought these up there. I'm not going to say what or not. It just appears to be a little bit on the over intense side, both with the greens and the blue and the mauves that we see on the bird. But aside from that subtle point, the rest of this is a wonderful composition. The bird stands out nicely. It's as clear as it needs to be. I love the different leading lines of those of the deadwood that lead down from the bird into the water and off into the distance. I think that's excellent. And very nicely done with the darker water and the dark on the top as well. Some natural vignetting we see there that really constrains ourselves to that middle 4/5 of the area in the middle. And that's very effective. So nice job. Thank you.
Beauty within.
All right, so here we have a soft sort of artistic shot. First, you've got this image of this bloom. And I love the composition. I love the way you cropped it. You've got a lot of intentional crops there, but it's a high key shot in that it's on the brighter side, and there's not a huge amount of separation between the background and the bloom. There is enough to clearly understand and appreciate that, but there's a softness to it as well. And I think that in this case, it's very effectively done. It's a very artistic shot. There's some wonderful artistic qualities to it. It's effective use of high key, and I can't suggest any changes. I just think you did a nice job. Thank you.
Plaza at Monterey.
All right. So wonderful action shot. Got all this fireworks going on. I wouldn't be surprised if this was a composite that you took several different photos, firework shots and put them all together in there. But I love the fact that in this presentation, they're there to impart that sense of energy in that setting. There also appears to be some sort of a light painting quality, especially at the base, where all those different blooms and colors of flowers are coming out, and they look like they've been painted with light a little bit. But I think that's fine. The only challenge I think you have there is you have all those wonderful fireworks and you have the fountain there, and then you have that stairwell with those bright colored signs as well. And that's a little bit, to me, that bothers me a little bit. It's a little bit jarring. Had this been my shot, I probably would have been tempted to clone out both those neon signs, because if those bright colors weren't there, then you'd have a little bit more framing element with the roof of the walkway coming down that would frame, and it would actually allow a little bit more separation of your fireworks and of the fountain itself. So something to think about. These are minor things, but are things that we can do in pictorial and may aid the quality. You don't always have to settle with what you have in front of you. Thank you.
Mystical Tafoni.
Okay, nice image of the Tafoni, which is what this type of rock formation is called. But it's an interesting shape, and I love the different colors you have in there as well. It's nicely centered. There's an obvious subject in the middle with lots of interesting striations and bending and flow all around the edges. I think that turns out to be a nice framing element. And I think, as I said, the light blue color is just tremendous, just well seen. And it's just a fun shot to see, and a credit to the photographer for seeing it. So good job. Thank you.
Bathed in red.
All right. So not only do we have this image of this shot in the water there, but you've done a lot of interesting job in terms of your lighting. And the lighting is, obviously is behind the water, the vase, and yet you still have, it emanating through and around it. And then I love the different shading of the lighting on the blooms. And that's what really brings this whole thing together, is that subtle fall off of light from red at the base onto the blooms and then falling off. And I think that's a very effective way of presenting this. And that's a more artistic view to this. It isn't purely you're seeing this as this image has that feel it was created, yet there's still a believability to it. But the only thing I would have been tempted to do is that within the vase, the brightest red parts, I would have tried to tone down a little bit. They seem to be awfully bright. And yet the whole tenor of this shot, except for that bright part in the very middle there, is a little bit on the softer muted side. So I probably would have been tempted to take that red, that really red dark tones where it's in the water, and to darken it and maybe tone it down a little bit to see if I can't get it to sort of be not so jarring relative to the whole image, but to blend into the muted feel that you're so successfully communicated here. Thank you.
In the pocket, the fastest part of a breaking wave.
Yeah. Nice shot. Good shot. Lots of wonderful, great composition elements. Its clarity is fine. Wonderful, great colors. Still on the bright side with colors, but I'm enjoying it. I just think it's great fun. I like lots of nice shadows. Both, you know, you see the back and the rear part of the boy there. And I love the shadowing on the upper part of his on his chest area and on his side. You caught peak of action. You see him going right through all of the water. The wonderful flow of the wave, giving us that nice undulating lines, and the background just fits together here. I don't know if I would change anything. I think you did a really nice job. There's a little bit of harsh contrast in there between the shadows and the body, but I think that's in keeping with this being bright day and in the middle of the activity. So it makes a lot of sense to me, and it doesn't jar me at all. It just seems appropriate. So nice job. Thank you.
Wrinkled, hairy, transcendent.
I love this shot. I love how successful you are at giving me all the details in that balloon. And that just doesn't happen. That's just isn't a click of the shutter. It's a lot of work that goes into that, a lot of work in the processing. I would not be surprised to know if this was a focus stacked image. Look at the detail in all that stem and the amount of detail spent in terms of ensuring that shows. There's even a shadowing on the stem. I think that's wonderful. That center part is all nice and sharp. And the background isn't pure one color, but you have a little bit of feel of a texture back there as well. So kudos for really capturing this texture. This is really a well done image. And I can appreciate the amount of work it takes to get that. So good job. Thank you.
Masters, 9 images.
Evening shadow.
This is really a pattern shot that really focuses on all the different shadows and all those different sand gullies all throughout the hill. And I think it's very effective here. It has to be done during the low sun, where the sun is low, either in this case evening, as your title tells me. And that's where you get the shadowing. And that's where you get all those lines to form. Bright sun, all that disappears. It's a good job of seeing that. You're telling us what it's about. And there's a simplicity. Besides the hill with all those lines, the rest of it is all very simple and clean. Do you need as much of the hill as you gave us? In this case, that is really a maker's choice. I could see this image being equally as effective if you crop from the bottom up, but I can see that there's a place for that as well, because you have different types of flow lines that maybe you want to actually articulate, and by keeping that here. So a lot of ways of looking at that. There's a lot of simplicity here, and yet it's well thought out. Thank you.
The blue light of morning.
So here the sun is either the sun is a little bit higher, or the sand whales are a lot less intense, because here we don't have as deep a shadows as we're seeing here. Enough though that definitely this is a low light event still in the morning in this case, and that gives us the wonderful undulations we're seeing. But here you've given it to us both in the sand and in the background. And you have the you have that blue light showing throughout there. And so you have the combination of the blue and the yellows, which is a wonderful complementary color collection. And you have different tones of the blue all throughout there. So very effective, yet very simple. Thank you.
The indispensable oil can, Sturgeon's Mill.
You know, this is it almost has a Norman Rockwell feel about it. You get the hyper reality of the motion of the machinery, all the wonderful detail, the interesting detail even in the shadows, and then you have the classic kid looking at that and not necessarily seeing their whole face. Very reminiscent of the Norman Rockwell type of the setting. And I think it's just very well seen and nicely seen here. So good job. I love the fact that you see a sense of, you really get a feeling that this is in motion by the blurred belts and the blurred aspects of the engine going on, working there. And you get a little atmosphere going on as well. So there's a lot of fun stuff here, and I'm enjoying it all quite a bit. I do find that the rail that the child is leaning on, that wood there, sort of gets lost a little bit. I would have been tempted to dark or lighten that a little bit to see if I can get a little more separation of that from the area around it, but that's a minor point. Finally, your title indicates that the oil can is so indispensable, but it's such a small part of the image that I really have to go searching for it. I don't know if that's your intent, but I find that by the time I find the oil can, it's so small relative to the whole image, I feel a little bit disappointed that it's not a bigger player. And the only reason I think that is that in your title, you emphasize it so much. Something to think about. Thank you.
Old Grove Tree.
Wow. There's a mystical glow feel for this whole image. And I'm enjoying that. I don't see that with a lot of images. And I'm sure there's a lot of different editing you did in order to achieve that. But I love your final result. The tree itself is nicely defined against the environment. You have the brightest part right in the middle, looking through on all those bright greens. But there's an ethereal glow type of feel to that. And I'm really enjoying that. It almost looks like this is fantasy. It doesn't look absolutely real. It has more of a fantasy type of feel to it, but there's nothing wrong with that in pictorial. And so your composition is excellent. It was well seen to begin with. I got a feeling you work quite hard in some of the processing, and I just really am enjoying this overall feel. I wish I could do this with my images more than I do so. Thank you.
The explosive beauty of barrel racing.
All right, peak of action shot. Great done. I love the fact that the back legs are in the ground, the front legs are up. There's dirt all over the place. There's hair going in each direction. The tail is wonderfully shown and all the detail there. I love the lean of both the horse and the rider. And that's a bit evident here as well. And there's good composition as well. So a lot of fun stuff there. I wonder a little bit, I don't know if I guess it's natural, but there's a little blurring that happens right by the nose in the dirt. We lose some of that detail. And I don't know if that's because there's dust kicked up or that maybe, or something else, but I wonder if that's natural there. It sort of adds a little odd feel there, but that's a minor point. The rest of that, good peak of action, gives me a sense of motion. The concept of explosiveness is very clear in the image. So good job. Thank you.
Daddy, can I have a big one?
Point in time, wonderful. I think you did a really nice job with a long exposure. I don't mind the fact that his hand is a little blurred, but I love the fact that the people behind the counter are sort of blurred. they're indistinct because of that. And you did a nice job in your lighting. Notice how on the far right and far left, how dark it is. And the brightest, aside from the area behind the father's head, it's the area around the boy that's the brightest. There are a couple other bright spots there, but I have no trouble focusing in on the child, that area, and the interaction between him and the father, that eye-to-eye contact. That's really nicely done. The rest of it becomes a little bit indistinct, a little bit on the dark side, and that's perfect. It really fits the whole scene. So nice job. Thank you.
Spring along Salmon Creek.
Right, nice landscape shot there. We've got a wonderful view of this creek leading through the wooded area there. We get the creek banks there. We get the scattering of the bright green in terms of new growth, spring growth occurring all throughout the Soul Vale. And I think that's very nice. It just gives you a nice feel for that. Gives you feel you can sort of think or see where you believe that creek is going to go. We don't need to see the whole creek in the whole place. We can just sort of see the valley it undulates through. Nice. Aside from that, a lot of different foliage, a lot of different detail in the different elements, and just a nice presentation of this place. Thank you.
Sandstorm, Monument Valley, Arizona.
We see a lot of Monument Valley images, but very rarely do I see one where they've coupled the magnificent view of the area with the atmospheric effects, and which you have done here. That sandstone, that indistinct feel is sort of interesting. It's not typical, and just gives me a different feel for the whole thing. I love the fact that there's more detail on the very bottom, and then as you go further and you look far in the distance, it gets more and more obscured, which is what happens with sandstone, which happens with atmospheric effects. Yet we still get enough detail within both the monuments on the near ground to understand that there's a lot more to these. And yet, as we go farther back there, we don't see as much detail, which aids in terms of sense of depth. One would ask, do you need quite as much of the sky? You probably crop down a little bit and still maintain that, but that would be a decision for the maker to make as well. I think if you crop down a little bit from the top until the first bank of clouds is gone, but you still have the second with the blue there, you still might be able to tell your story while focusing more on the land and the atmosphere. Something to think about. Thank you.
Leopard at Night, Sabi
Right.
Sands, South Africa.
Okay, nice wildlife shot with light source right on the animal, and you bring it there, and then he's in the environment. And the composition sort of gives us a lot of area there. I don't know if you quite need as much on the left. I do understand leaving some area there. I do understand that the empty space plays a role in this shot, in that he's in this environment, but you just can't see it, and so the direct light is there. I just don't know if you need quite as much as you have here. But aside from that, the rest of the cat's beautiful. The gradation of light is great. The detail in the face is excellent. And just one of these great shots, that you don't see an awful lot like this, and yet I'm still enjoying it. Finally, I'm enjoying the pinstripe around the edge of the image as well. I think that was a very effective choice because it really does indicate, and helps us understand where your image starts and stops. Thank you.
Non-competitive, 13 images.
I have a question for this.
Sure.
When I see in this image, you just want to comment on just the image itself and not about how it fits in a category?
Well, the category is open to all categories. So it's non-competitive, but it's covering, it could be any of the different categories.
Okay. That's fine. I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Portrait with Apple.
All right. Okay, I'll say the obvious. It has a William Tell feel to it, and that's fine. That's great. It's a great portrait shot as well. I think the exposure on the face is excellent. I love what she's wearing there. I love your background there, and the concept is just a lot of fun. Unfortunately, the hat, I think we need to bring out a lot more detail. As shown right here, that hat is a featureless black blob. And if one can bring up more detail in that hat or switch to a hat that has some more visible detail, I think that would help quite a bit. I love everything about that image except that hat, and the fact that there's no detail and it's totally featureless makes it just feel like a blob there. And I think that's something you can work on with this kind of shot. Thank you.
Never give a zebra LSD.
Oh, this is fun, surrealist way. It's a creative shot. This could be creative, or this could be pictorial. I think either would go fine. Here, you've really taken all those different stripes and added a color to them and given us a lot of contrast, and that's fine. But the only thing I believe that you probably do want to get rid of your logo on the lower left-hand corner. Because supposedly these are anonymous commentary here. But I do, once I understand the zebra is there, and once I find the eye, the rest of it makes a lot of sense. I'm just enjoying that immensely. The pinstriping around the outside is also an effective touch. Thank you.
Winemaker by SR.
This is a really excellent monochrome image, very poignant. I mean, nothing is perfectly done here. Nothing is in its prime. Her hair isn't, she isn't. The bottles aren't perfect there. There's just a lot of atmospheric feel to this that really bring, those long hours, the long work, the starkness of a reality. It's just all there. And I think it's just wonderful in this. This could be a wonderful monochrome. This could be a wonderful pictorial. You really get a nice job of giving me this feel. It almost has this late night feel. We've all been there. We've all put those hours in. I love the fact that, how she fades off. You can just barely see a little bit of separation between her and the chair she's sitting in. But the fact that it blends off into a total blackness there doesn't bother me at all. It's very, very appropriate. Wonderful creation of life. Thank you.
Nature's Kingdom.
Wow, a lot of good work here. You got some mirror effects. You got a lot of different work you put in to give sort of its undulations and the different feels and the different reflective feels, different odd types of refraction and reflection that's going on. You center on the animals in the center, but then the rest of the world sort of explodes and bends all around it. Just a fun, creative shot here. I really would have been very happy to see this in creative as well. Obviously, a lot of works there, but a lot of stories being told there as well. I think that circle in the middle of that lens really pulls her eye to the middle, and everything else then augments what we're seeing. Nice job. Thank you.
London Reimagined.
There's a lot of imagination going in here, and there's a lot of odd things happening. And you went to town with all sorts of different effects and different ways of blending things around. And so we have some reality in the lower left corner, and then we have some warpage happening in the lower right corner, or the lower right quadrant, and then we go to town on the ceiling. And just a lot of visual effects, all sorts of things you can bring to mind. And, it's just an extravaganza of stuff happening almost to the extreme, because there's so much happening that's very, very busy, but that's a style. And I think that's an intentional style that you've applied here. So I'm willing to accept that, and I love what you got there. Thank you.
We each walk our own path.
I'm very clever. First, you have a wonderful scene. Second, I love the striping and the lines you go through there. I think that's effective. I love the fact that the people are semi-translucent. That there's, sometimes we can see the environment through the people. Sometimes we see them straddling these lines, or the lines in front or behind them. So there's that complexity going on there. You know, I love what you're doing there. The only thing I found a little disappointing is I didn't like the idea of that one person being reproduced and then mirrored there. I sort of wonder if you could have had a different subject in that instead of having the same one. But you know, that's just maybe that's on my own personal thing. But nothing else is that replicated. That is, and to my mind, that was all of a sudden very clear that appeared to be just replicated. Another person partially shown there who's doing a similar thing, but a different person might be worthwhile exploring here. Aside from that, nice imagination, good presentation, and a fun image. Thank you.
By SR.
All right, so here, first you found this very interesting types of whatever it is in the concrete. I mean, the more you look at this, the more you can pull out all sorts of interesting shapes and manners. It can be very erotic. It can be very abstract. It can be, just pattern. It's a variety of things. Your imagination goes crazy. And that's the intent here. I think it's a nice presentation. It's just fun in that aspect. And I think it's very effective at getting my mind to seek out other explanations as to what these shapes could be recommend. But I love the title, implying that yes, it's okay just to wonder. It's inviting me to wonder, both by title and by image. Thank you.
My best friend.
Fun shot. Excellent. Well, I sure would have, this would have been a wonderful pictorial shot. It's a portrait shot, yes, but it's an exquisite portrait shot in many ways. First, the fur, the face, the fur, the animals, excellent. The background just is wonderful. The fact that you got that tongue sticking out like you do, and yet at the same time, those eyes, laser focused at something in the distance there. It's just wonderful. It tugs my heart. It seems so authentic, and yet it seems so very unique. It's not the typical pet portrait where only the owner can appreciate it. There's some very unique and well done things that sets this apart and makes it special. And the things I mentioned are some of the things. So nice job. Next.
Aquatic homage to 17th century still life artist Giuseppe Reco.
Yeah, I loved it. I've been engaged in trying some still life photography. And one of the hallmarks of still lifes is the gradation of light and the blending of light aspects on your main subject. And that's just shown throughout all these little crayfish. So I think that's great. And then you have the combination of the tank it's in, you have the bubblers going on, different gyrations, shape. Just a fun image here, just excellent. This could easily be in a pictorial category. This could easily be in a creative category, because the fact that this is an homage to a certain type of art is the creative aspect to this. So I think that works out as well. But just, the treatment of light, the colors, the nice tones, the subjects, and the composition, I just think are excellent. Nice job. Thank you.
Roots.
Okay, so here, this is sort of a tale of two cities. You got the bottom half, which are all these bright images of all these roots that are very clearly distinct. And that's wonderful. I can clearly make out the different levels of the roots. I can make out the structure on them. I can tell where they are. And then you have the top halves of the image, in which tonally these things all sort of blend together. And we lose some of that distinctness. And I would work on the upper category, maybe darkening the darks slightly, maybe lightening the lights a little bit. Can I get a little bit more tonal separation happening with the tree trunk in that upper half of the image? It sort of blends together, and so you lose a little of the impact that was so nicely characterized in the bottom half of this image. Again, to me, sort of a tale of two cities here. Thank you.
Coast Meadow.
Yeah. And here was an image now treated in a painterly effect. And I think that's wonderful. You've taken away a lot of the absolute distinctness and just given me this sort of this impressionist type of feel to the image. And it's very effective. It captured the wonderful textures, the colors, the scenery is very clear. You've got some nice layers going on, a good foreground, midground, and background, a sense of depth. So a lot of good things, and a nice rendition. That's sort of painting here. This is, one that you could have and just enjoy in a long time. Now, question: do you need as much on the bottom? If you have the crop up from the top, might that actually? So maybe you took a third of that more orangey part on the, which is the last third of the bottom, came up a little bit. Would that actually make it a little bit more balanced? It's a little bit heavy on the foreground. Bring that up a little bit, it becomes a little balanced, and perhaps it's a little bit easier to get further into the image. Something to think about. Thank you.
Columns at abandoned Comstock silver mine mill seem lined up as stand-ins for the San Francisco musicians audience. American Flats, Nevada.
Okay, lot of good feel to this. I really appreciate the work that went into it. The scene is, the tone qualities really bring out the elements. There's all the graffiti and the wonderful color and the shapes and the textures that the graffiti shows, and then some nice atmospheric effects from those skylights or those holes where the light is coming through. I think all that's very effective. Your treatment of shadows is excellent, and your treatment of light, especially across that musician. Look at the shadows at his feet, where that really blends him into that. I don't know if this is, what aspects of this image are due to composite and what aspects are normal, and it doesn't matter. To me, as a whole, this has a real atmospheric feel to it, and it pulls me into the image, and I'm just enjoying it. So nice job.
Dogs at play.
Okay, fun. You got the dogs there, and you've got a good composition, good placement of the dogs right there. A good action going on. Nice foreground, midground, and background. A good sense of depth. I think that all works good. The only thing that's difficult to me with this image is I'm having a hard time really understanding, the fluffy dog that's behind the dog in mid-stride. I've lost his face, and because I can't, it's harder for me. I think I see where the eyes are. I think I see where a ear might be, but that distinct, because I really can't see the nose. Maybe not. It becomes less characteristic, and that becomes sort of a blob, and some of the distinctness of that is lost. And so there's nothing you can do with this image on that. That just happened to be the way the fur was flying at that moment. But it makes this a little bit less of a compelling image because I can't distinctly tell where he's at or where he's looking. I can conjecture where it might be, but not enough to carry the day. So something to think about. Thank you.
Okay. We'll take another 5-minute break, and then we'll come back and show the winners. And do I see Steve there?
I saw him earlier.
I'm here.
Okay. Are you doing the awards, or shall I?
I'll let you know in a few minutes. I got to double check the ICM.
Okay.
Whoever did the Sunset Obscured by Fog, I love fog so much, I almost forgot to read the title. The way I went, oh, I have a job.
Fog is one of the more difficult things to capture well.
They got Carl spot on there.
Carl, right.
I grew up in Livermore. I moved north to get fog.
One of the few people who've done that.
Oh, there's no reason to stay in Livermore.
Any other questions or comments for me? Got a chance to get me now.
I was also having issues with the exceedingly fluffy dog, and I know several of those exceedingly fluffy dogs, and it was still, as you said, conjecture.
Yeah.
There were possibilities. Oh, and
What I was just trying to describe those is I looked at it, something was like lacking, something was missing. And it took me the longest time to put into words what it was. But in images where they're portraits or you have definite features, especially with animals and faces, when all of a sudden something where there should be a face isn't as easy to discern, it just doesn't, we just don't tend to like that as much. It's the way we are as humans.
I've got a
Sure.
comment for you about that black and white image, macabre. You missed the pareidolia. Kind of down near the center front is a face which appears to have this plume of smoke coming out of it, rising up to the top. And I thought it was very striking. And the title led me into looking for that. And that's what I found. That's what I saw.
Yeah, see, I didn't understand.
I saw that too.
I didn't see that. And to me, and I'm just telling you what affected me. I'm not gonna say good or bad, but
Right.
since the macabre what? I don't know. Macabre is an adjective, not a noun. So since I only had an adjective there, I wasn't looking for something to find. So that's I guess sort of the feeling I had, which then led me on to, I mean, the only identifiable thing I could find was that rope.
Steve,
And-
I saw the same face you did.
It was like a mask. So it was a macabre kind of mask, and the macabre, like.
Yeah,
Mhm.
same here.
Like I said,
Charlie, I have a comment. You mentioned the pinstripe a few times on photos, but I think that is something that is automatically added. Maybe Steve can tell us, when they're displayed for us here. Does
Yeah.
anybody know?
Yes, it is automatically added. I noticed occasionally I didn't see it, which surprised me, but it is, a pinstripe is added by the system.
is it added the same way to all the images?
I noticed
Oh.
one or two that didn't have it, which surprised me, since, after you mentioned that, but it is added by the system. But the thin one,
Right.
the one
it-
pixel one.
It adds a 1 pixel thin white frame. And that's a setting that you can turn on or off. And the reason we chose it is because in an image that has a lot of black background, you can't tell
Right.
if it's a small cropped image or if it's a very wide one
Right,
with
which
lots
is-
of empty space.
Which is why I like to recognize the maker who acknowledges that and takes action in order to clarify that.
But it's
So-
done by the
But it's
system,
not.
not the maker.
It's the system.
I know, but there were also images where the maker had obviously done that.
Yes, there was a.
And
thick
we should have, as makers, we should be in control as to how our images are going to be presented to other people,
Yeah.
not depend on software to do it for us.
Mhm.
Charlie?
Yes.
You can do that in Photoshop under edit, and it's called stroke.
Yeah, he knows.
Yeah, so I understand. Stroke is sort of it's not the best way of doing things. It will work in some cases, but it acts as bizarreness if you start having masks. There are other ways of doing it that are more effective doing that besides the effect stroke aspect. I've used them both. My point is here, and the point I would want to bring home to the club is the maker should control how their images is going to be seen by others, not depend on the software to maybe do it for them. That's just my personal comment on that.
Well, it can also be sort of without that 1 pixel border, and you're saying that it's up to the maker to do it, then the maker would have to change the contrast in order for it to reveal itself when projected on a video screen.
No, I can add a 16 if I have an image that's 19 by 13 and I add a 16 point. Essentially, I add a 16-point mask around the end and invert it, and then just put a color layer there. And now I can control the intensity, the darkness, the color of that stripe, and the amount of, I can control the thickness. And so now I can control all those aspects to make it as subtle or as obvious as I want. And I'm in control as to how it does.
Okay, 5 minutes are up. Ready to show the winners? Are you doing it, Steve?
I'm all set.
Great.
Okay. Creative Basic, 2 images. Second place, Elizabeth. Is Elizabeth here?
I don't think so.
I'm here, sorry. Thanks. This was an image from the flower show at the Legion of Honor. And then I put it into Photoshop, and actually the way it pulled the flowers around the frame was just, I was really pleased. And so thank you very much.
First place, Mark. Is Mark here?
I haven't seen him tonight.
Congratulations to Mark.
Nice.
Creative Intermediate, 2 images. Second place, Laura.
Thank you. And I did the composite class, whatever that you did earlier, and I ended up a little over my head, but I've been playing with it more. So this was kind of a task to masking and layers and all that. So thank you.
Excellent. Very fun.
Yeah. Super fun.
Congratulations.
Laura, I mean, I think this would be something you're proud of. This is not oh, I'm just trying this and I hope to work it. I think you did very effectively here.
Thank you.
I like the theme too. I love the fact that they're escaping from their cages. It's great.
Thank you.
Congratulations. First place, Ellen.
Yay.
Thank you. This was 2 photos that I took in the town of Locke, and that it's a shade, a very, very damaged roll-up shade in a window, and there was no reflection. But I had also taken a photo of the town that day, and they just went together, and so I had fun with it. And I thank you for the award.
It's delightful.
Really wonderful.
That's full days background on it.
Congratulations. Creative Advanced, 4 images, honorable mention. Ronnie.
Oh, thank you. I actually did this during the Spend an Hour with a Flower a while back, and I took a lot of different shots of the peace lily, and came up with this. So thank you for recognizing it.
Nice.
Congratulations. Third place,
Congratulations.
Tricia.
Yeah, I saw this immediately and I'm always shocked when somebody doesn't see it right away. To me, it's a reclining skeleton buried in the rocks, and I appreciate the award. Thank you.
Great.
Good job.
Congratulations.
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 Thanks.
Sec-
Amy.
Second place, Linda.
I don't think she's here.
Linda is traveling.
Oh, she's traveling. That's right. Congratulations to Linda.
Beautiful.
First place, Steve.
Oh, Steve.
This is another Death Valley image, and the UFO is a musical instrument that I have. I have 3 of these. It's a
Oh, that's what it is.
yeah,
Yes.
it's a handpan. So
Yeah.
there's gimbals, you actually hit those. It has 8 notes around the top, and actually 7 around the top and 1 in the center. Anyway, everybody's always calling it, saying, "Oh, it looks like a UFO." So I've had it in my mind to do something with it for the last 3 years. And when this image came up with Death Valley, with hiker going down, it's like, yeah, it's just not strong enough image. And I'm like, you know what? I've been wanting to do this for a long time, so here we go. So anyway, thank you.
It's great.
Yeah, really fun.
Very clever, Steve.
Ridiculous amount of work, but thanks to all the input I had from people, and thanks for your appreciation. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
Creative Masters, 4 images, honorable mention. And
That.
I love this, Anne. Beautiful
You
color.
have to teach me how to do this. This is amazing.
Yep, I agree.
Well, this was just moving the camera. And it was on a field trip up in Reno. And so
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, the colors are great.
Put it in
Thank
the photo magic show.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
I really like it.
One aspect that we'll notice, that one thing that makes it doesn't look obviously like intentional camera movement is how sharp those lines in the middle are. So when you moved it up and down, there was absolutely no movement side to side. And
Yeah, it was handheld too.
yeah, I know. That's very difficult. That's very,
Kind of a
very
miracle.
difficult. Yeah, that's very, very difficult to do. And so that makes, if this is an intentional camera movement and handheld, that's very unique and very well
It's
done.
beautiful. Just beautiful.
Yeah, nice.
congratulations. Third place, Liz.
All right, Liz.
Thanks. This was at Petaluma Salvage, and it was like folded covers over wood and stuff, and I did a composite in camera.
Oh, nicely done.
Well done. Well done.
Nice.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
like it.
Congratulations. Second place, me.
Yay!
Oh, Steve. Photo magic.
Yeah,
This is-
definitely.
Photo
Where do
magic.
we-
Gotta
Where do
do
we
it.
purchase our prints?
This is actually a sunset, but this is an effect of, as though this was a canvas of wet oil and you took combs and dragged it through the
Yeah.
clouds, and that produced a fiery effect.
Oh, it's just gorgeous.
Yes. Great framing.
Mhm.
Nicely done.
What's the
I didn't
tree?
even notice that they were trees at first. Just a very unusual, beautiful color.
I like the lighting on it too.
Mhm.
The lighting is really
Very
fun.
Very nice, Steve.
Thank you. First place, Mike.
Oh,
Oh, wow.
beautiful.
Thank you very much. It was a great time to be at the beach.
Yeah.
I just love going out there trying new things.
Good job.
Winner.
Just notice the people in the background.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah,
Great.
very cool.
Yeah, it's neat.
Good job.
Congratulations.
Love the foreground.
Journalism Basic, 1 image, first place. Sarah.
Yay.
Very nice.
Nice, good job.
It was, I just couldn't get my camera out of there with the sun shining on top of it. Thank you.
Cool.
Good job.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
And since you wanted to know the who, why, and when, it was our very small, mostly modern club. And we did the dyeing in the back of my shop in Roseland, where it didn't matter if we spilled.
So you were doing the dyeing. You weren't taking pictures that others be doing the dyeing.
I was doing pictures of people doing the dyeing, and then I just couldn't help myself and put the camera down and jumped in with the rest of them, and then got my camera out later.
Cool.
I was the
Nice.
hostess who couldn't keep my hands out of it.
They don't look blue though.
That's the color it is. It's
No, I mean
No,
your hands.
Your hands.
oh,
your
they were
hands.
blue for about a week.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Journalism Intermediate, 2 images, second place. Pat.
Yeah, good one.
Nice.
I totally agree with the judge. I should have toned down the concrete. He's absolutely right. So thank you for that tip.
But Pat, the shadow is just such a dance.
And what I love is where the shadow touches. The
Right.
shadow
Yes.
touches at exactly the right place.
Like a genie.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The model.
Exactly. It looks like a genie.
that is cool.
Yeah.
Congratulations. First place. Laura.
Ah, nice.
Oh,
Yay.
Thank you. And you were asking about the utilizing, I have a client that has a bunch of property and they photograph out there, and they were shearing, and she actually keeps the wool and spins it, weaves it, and does that. So that's why I'm saying she utilizes it herself versus shearing them for health purposes or cleanliness. So
Great, great
Great.
seeing.
Your owl
Good
bars.
story.
Congratulations.
Just an
Very
FYI
good.
about sheep shearing, but if the shearer can keep the sheep's legs up in the air, not on the ground, it will lie there quietly because it doesn't have any way to resist.
oh, interesting. Yeah, it was amazing to watch them work with the sheep.
Very nice, Laura.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, good job.
Congratulations. Journalism Advanced, 3 images, third place. Tricia.
Right.
hey,
Thank you. Yeah, this was an amazing exhibit. I prefer this to even looking at stuff normally. Every single, it went on for a long time and it was just beautiful. So thanks.
Very cool.
You captured it wonderfully.
I agree.
Love
And I kept it to 2 images on purpose.
Congratulations.
I mean, look at
Very
the,
nice.
given the fact this was handheld, look at that ISO. And, I mean, I'm just noticing, what you had to get through to get the light there. And it's
Yep.
done very nicely there, so I can see the
Wow.
work.
Thank you.
Both ISO 3200.
Yeah.
And f5.6, so you had to open that lens up as much as you could.
Congratulations. Second place, Bill.
I don't think Bill's here.
that's pretty powerful though.
Yeah, well,
It is.
very
Very
powerful.
nice.
I almost couldn't do the last one, but I did.
Congratulations to Bill. First place, Jennifer.
Hey,
Thank you very much. This was started out as a mystery, seeing these people running around with their tools and eventually becoming clearer what was going on. And then talking to the people in the town of Bandon about all these volunteers who come out all the time to help make these labyrinths. And I was just very taken with the whole thing. And thank you very much.
Cool to watch.
It was so enchanting.
Yeah, great story.
But you're
That almost looks like a really cool tattoo.
Yeah, yeah.
Tattoo.
Good job.
But I'll reinforce the fact that you have a beginning, middle, and end gives a sense of time to the process as well. And so that was a very effective use of in the sequence of having a start and a finish, or a wide versus starting out wide and then getting more detailed in. So good job.
Thank you. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, Jennifer. Really nice.
Journalism Masters, 3 images, 3rd place. Bill.
Oh, thank you.
Wow.
That was great.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a lot of fun. I took probably 40 shots during this ride, so I caught him coming right out of the gate and could use the metadata in my camera to figure out when 0 started and 6 seconds and
Oh, cool.
8
Oh,
seconds.
that's a good idea.
And after 8 seconds, the guy comes up and helps you get off the horse. Before that, you're on your own, as this poor guy was. Yeah,
Amazing capture.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Nice sequence. Very nice.
Beautifully done.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Especially on the horse.
Everything sharp.
Wow.
That was a great horse too. I loved it.
Yeah, exactly.
Congratulations. 2nd place. Herb.
Thank you. Yeah, this was just a fun capture at a concert that night. It had something I had never thought about doing or having seen done, and I actually went underneath there myself. So it was kind of a experience.
How was it?
Thank you.
How was it? What, did it sound good?
Yeah, it was great. It was, I mean, you usually walking around with headphones on because you wouldn't hear the piano otherwise. So everybody, when you went to the concert, gets a headphone. But at this point in the concert, he invites you to come up, take off your headphones, and literally sit 2 feet from the soundboard.
Wow.
It was something different.
Wow.
Thank you.
Good job.
We used to do this in our
Congratulations.
family after dinner.
Yeah.
1st place. Tamara.
Ah,
Wow.
Fantastic, Tamara.
Great colors.
Yeah.
Everybody's separated enough. It's cool.
Yeah, there's still a sense of story here.
Mhm.
And the eye contact and the fact that, those weren't just tourists. I mean, you told us they weren't, but there was a real something going on, really added a lot to
Yeah.
my feeling on the sense of story.
Yeah.
Congratulations to Tamara.
This is tomorrow.
Monochrome Basic, 4 images, honorable mention. Elizabeth.
Nice.
what's the head?
Thank you. There's a sculpture garden at Bombay Beach, and it changes all the time. And this one I was just flabbergasted. I walked around it and around it and around it. But thank you.
Nice.
Congratulations. 3rd place. Dan.
Beautiful. I don't think
Here?
so.
I
No.
don't think so.
Congratulations to Dan. 2nd place. Dan again.
Wow. Buck in a box.
This is good.
And 1st place. Mark.
Ah,
Yeah.
Lovely,
Here's-
lovely.
Very nice.
Well,
It's cool,
Nice.
little indentation.
the reflection, really cool.
yeah.
And his eye is visible. It's so distinct, so sharp. Love it.
Yeah.
And a little drop of water.
Yeah, a droplet.
Yep.
Nice.
Mark,
Congratulations to Mark.
well deserved.
Monochrome intermediate, 2 images, second place. Pat.
Oh, God, Pat,
Yeah.
that's wonderful.
Yeah, it was fun. Just saw the little tracks in the sand, and I just thought they were interesting.
Photo magic show.
Yeah.
That's exquisite.
Aw.
They look so tiny.
I know they do, huh? Lily?
Beautiful.
What it was.
Congratulations. First place,
Very good.
Laura.
Oh,
Laura.
Thank you.
Glad you did this.
I know it's sort of reminiscent. Mike had one he did, I don't know, last year or before, and I happened to, when I was out, got Seagull kind of getting that same sort of flip with the water, but it's kind of fun when you can capture it.
yeah.
So does it come off the tail or does it come off the body?
The feet, it's the kicking. I think it's the feet.
Oh, the
kicking off.
feet.
That's one
Yeah.
of my favorite things to catch with birds when they're taking off is what happens to the water behind them.
Uh-huh.
It's a great capture.
Yeah, it really is.
Great shot.
There is.
Great shot.
I'm lucky to
Nice
find
shot,
it.
nice shot.
Yeah.
Congratulations, Laura.
Congratulations. Monochrome advanced, 3 images, third place. Ronnie.
Nice.
Oh, thank you. This bridge goes to I think the newest park in Manhattan. It's called Little Island, and it's a man-made island. Very cool. It's supported by these, they're columns, but they're very organic looking. And anyway, we went to see it for the first time, and this is the view that we saw.
Beautiful.
Yeah, thank you.
Really nice, Ronnie.
Thank
Mhm.
you. Thanks. And
Congratulations.
that's the Millennium Tower, in case you didn't realize it.
Wouldn't know.
Oh, there's a train. Is there a train in the background? Is that a
No.
train track that has like the little bottle shaped
No.
wires or?
No,
Oh, okay. I was trying to figure out what those bottle shapes were. Over
not
over
sure.
the bridge to the right. Right in the sky. To the left of the tall light pole. I mean, to the
Oh,
right
I
of the
see what
tall
you're
light pole.
calling. Yeah, like wire bottles.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out those ones.
Oh,
I didn't even notice them until you just
Oh.
mentioned.
That's funny, huh? What we see.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Second place, Bill.
Oh,
Nice.
yeah, really beautiful.
Serious muscles on that guy.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
Perfect water.
better be.
Don't let go.
Yeah, you're right.
Well, he's roped on.
yeah.
Okay, good.
Still wouldn't want to let go.
Congratulations to Bill. First place, Jennifer.
Oh,
Yay, great. Thank
Beautiful.
you. This is one of my favorite pictures of the Everglades. I think these are cypress trees. And they make little knees that stick up from the ground. You can see some toward the right. Anyway, thank you very much. It's
You
one of
have
my-
to get that printed, Jennifer.
It's a
Yeah.
good-
That'd be a
It
good-
looks like ents and skirts.
I
God's pretty lady.
almost called it something about ants, but I didn't know if everyone would get the reference.
Yeah, that's true.
We're of an age.
Yes,
Yeah, they're total ants.
Oh, well done. Very
thank
nice.
you very much.
Beautiful.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Monochrome Masters, 4 images, honorable mention. Jack.
Ah,
Yay.
Yay.
Jack's back.
Beautiful, Jack.
Jack's back.
Right on. Now I like this.
Are you still up, Jack?
Maybe not.
Got so many layers to it.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah, he's still here, but Jack, you're muted. You're muted. You have to unmute yourself.
Missed your
You gotta
due.
get out of bed to do that.
Yeah, well, thanks. Yeah, this is out in Death Valley. And it was just out in the Ibex Dunes, and one of those places just for you showing up, you can't help great image. So thank you.
Thanks,
Nice,
Jack.
Beautiful.
We missed
Nice.
these.
Well done.
Congratulations. Third
Congratulations.
place,
Thank you.
Mike.
Oh, beautiful, Mike.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. It was a wonderful place to visit out in the middle of nowhere.
It's exquisite. That sky is
Yeah.
gorgeous.
Love those
The White
clouds.
Panther.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
brought out a lot in this. It's great.
Yeah, really gorgeous. Looks infrared.
Good control of the highlights.
From the exposure, Mike, it looks like you were, it was underexposed and during the day just to get this low-key effect. Is that a fair comment?
Yeah, it was about 2/3 of a stop underexposed. And then I made some changes after I had entered it before. The judge had made a few suggestions and I took him up on it. And I did think it worked a lot better.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Very good.
Congratulations. Second place,
Nice.
Mike again.
Thank you very much. This was in Sacramento on a photo walk that Tony and I did one morning while we were up there. And I had this, and when I cropped the photo, I started seeing all the different shapes and the angles. And I said, oh, I think I can do something with this. So thanks for recognizing that. It was a lot of fun working on it.
Yeah, great.
Nice job.
Congratulations. First place, Tony.
Funny.
This is my favorite church in North Dakota.
That's so cool.
It is sort of the quintessential building in the middle of nowhere. It originally was in the town that's about 2 miles north, and they moved it down here.
Wow.
And everyone we take to see this on the workshop, they don't want to leave. I thank you.
Looks like the Tin Man.
Yeah.
When was it originally
yeah.
constructed?
I see.
Nice use of negative space.
Tony, do you know when it was originally constructed?
If I were to guess, I would say probably 60, 80 years ago. Lignite is a ore, and they mine it not too far from that town.
Interesting.
It's about 25 miles from the Canadian border.
Oh.
Thank
So
you.
it was born around the time many of us were.
Yeah, but I'm not going to go farther than that.
Congratulations.
Really nice. Love it.
Pictorial basic, 4 images, honorable mention. Amy.
All right, Amy.
Such a great image.
So cool.
Congratulations, Amy. Well done.
Really cool.
Really beautiful.
Are you here?
Wow. So wow.
So cool.
Wow image.
The subtlety of the color added, I didn't even
Yeah.
notice that. That was good that Charlie pointed that out. That's
Congratulations to Amy. Third place, Elizabeth.
Cool.
Thank you. This is a tree in front of my Chinese medicine doctor's office, and I visited a lot, but I also noticed time of day. This was shot in October in the late afternoon, and I'm finding that I just love shooting at that, golden hour. Thank you.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Second place, Amy.
Really cool.
Yeah.
Looks like cyanotype to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amy, is the river frozen?
She's not here.
No, it isn't. You can
No.
see the movement in it.
Well, it also looks like ice. breaking.
I love that.
Yeah, it's great.
Really cool.
It is cool.
Great leading lines around. It's great.
Mhm.
Congratulations to Amy. First place, Mark.
Yay!
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Oh, yeah, that's
Right.
beautiful. Nice ibis.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Congratulations.
incredible.
And it speaks different colors.
Amazing.
Congratulations to Mark.
Yeah, great catch.
Pictorial Intermediate. 2 images, second place. Ellen.
Yay.
Thank you. I had fun with this. It was just a wall again in lock, and but then I took it again and scrunched it and put it on a diagonal on another layer a couple times, just to make it more interesting.
And it is.
Yeah. I don't.
Very, very comfortable.
Well seen. Well
Beautiful
seen.
color.
Yeah. Well
Nice
done.
color and texture.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Brent,
First
you
place,
too.
Pat.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Well, I totally agree with the judge again. I think I could carve off some from the sky. So thank you for that tip. And I appreciate your comments. Thank you.
Yeah, congratulations, Matt. Good job.
Beautiful.
Nice.
Really nice.
Congratulations.
Hmm.
Pictorial Advanced, 6 images, honorable mention. Linda.
oh,
Pretty.
that's very nice.
Very pretty.
For Lightbox. pictures.
Mhm.
Yeah, she did a great job.
Mhm.
Really like the colors in this and shapes and everything about it. It's wonderful.
Congratulations. Honorable mention, Gary.
Oh, love that.
Awesome. All right. Nice.
Gary still here?
Was.
Nope.
Oh,
A lot going on in that image. That's pretty, really good impact.
The fireworks are amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Spectacular fireworks. It's unreal.
Congratulations to Gary. Another honorable mention, Tricia.
Thanks.
It's
This was taken at a
gorgeous.
place just beyond Gersel Cove, a place that Neil Silverman told us about. And the whole panorama there was full of stuff like this. It was just gorgeous. So thanks.
that color is amazing.
The blue is amazing.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it is blue there. It is blue. It's probably not quite that aqua, but it's blue. It's really beautiful.
Was this the one in the PD?
Yeah.
Is it, you had it horizontal there.
Yeah, Joel told me to.
Okay.
Congratulations.
Nicely done.
Third place, Jennifer.
Oh,
Lovely.
thank you. This was such an exciting thing to see. I mean, we thought we were going to see an exciting sunset, and instead there was this incredible wall of fog out there. And I love, it's like a wave
Yeah.
crashing over.
Beautiful. Where was
Tsunami.
this? Where was this, Jennifer?
This is on the Oregon coast, actually near Bandon. Yeah, we were up on a bluff. I couldn't get any higher without climbing on the fence that was at the edge of the cliff. I didn't really want to do that, but I could see where that would have helped. Anyway.
And it went from horizon to horizon.
Wow.
It's beautiful.
Can you say drone?
Yeah,
There
oh,
you
would
go.
have been
There you
great.
go.
Yeah.
Job.
Thank you.
Amazing capture.
Congratulations. Second place, Bob.
Hey.
Oh,
yeah.
You're so good with flowers, Bob.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, this is an Iceland poppy, which I had never seen before, but my daughter-in-law, who's into flowers, brought over a bunch. And they're very photogenic. It's hard to keep away.
They are.
And so I just arranged a black background, had some side lighting coming in through my patio doors, and this was, what the shot
Wow.
looked like.
Great detail.
Perfect.
F20 to get that detail.
I know, I saw that.
Wow.
Ooh.
Good character.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Really nicely done. Really nice.
Congratulations. First place, Linda.
Wow,
Oh,
Nice.
She's out of town.
Yeah,
beautiful. Yeah, this is striking.
very pretty.
Looks like something you'd see like in a massage place.
And you could drink it after.
I was thinking more French impressionist.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
A
to
French,
Linda.
a French impressionist in a massage parlor.
Exactly, with ballerinas. Toulouse-Lautrec would have,
Pictorial Masters, 6 images, honorable mention. Bill.
Thank you. Yeah, they circle these barrels at high speed, and so at one point the horse comes almost to a stop, and then with an amazing burst of energy takes off again around it. That's what the dust is from circling around. So I was just trying to capture that. The strength of these horses just blows me away every time.
Yeah.
Wonderful image.
Great.
Strength in those animals.
Yeah.
yeah, truly.
In a great position too.
Mhm.
Congratulations.
Shot, Bill.
Thank you.
Honorable mention, Tamara.
Oh, gorgeous.
Yeah, wow.
I wonder how she got that light.
Carefully.
Yeah, I hope she didn't just come upon it.
From a distance.
Was a flashlight.
You think?
No.
Leopard at night.
ISO 12,800.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it's quite sharp.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
And an EOS 5D Mark IV.
Congratulations to Tamara.
Gorgeous.
And another honorable mention, Jack.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Great shot.
Thanks, me and my dunes. This is
Yeah, I know.
bigger. I have sunset, so the light is like 1 or 2 minutes before sunset, and I like the shadow up on top. Actually, is what kind of troubles your picture.
Mhm.
I like the minimalism of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
me too.
Nice work.
And I
Thanks,
like
Nancy.
that the dark dune in the back, or
Yeah.
dark whatever it is.
Yeah.
That really makes it.
Very well balanced, I
Really
think.
makes
Not
it,
really
yeah.
nice.
Yeah, it's a classic Jack.
Yeah, it
Yep.
is.
Yay!
So glad to have you back.
I like the subtle moire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Third
Thank you.
place. Congratulations, Jack. Third place. Herb.
Wow.
Oh, not getting video going. Thank you. This was a fortuitous capture while we were in Monument Valley. And the good news, bad news was there was a big sandstorm. So it basically was as shown. The bad news was I got a lot of sand in my camera. And, not sure.
Wow.
But thank you.
Yeah, Herb's
Just stunning,
gonna,
Steve.
Herb's gonna give us master presentation on his use in working with color.
Yay.
October, so we are
October, yeah.
really
Awesome.
looking forward to that. Herb.
Yay.
Oh
I
boy.
thought you were going to say
So
Herb
am
was
I.
going to give you a master presentation on how to clean a camera.
Yeah, that'd be a good one. Maybe
That would be a good one.
Too.
he could get help from Jack Florence, maybe.
Yeah. Speaking of sand.
Congratulations. Second place, Bill.
Oh,
Thank you.
Oh, that's great, Bill.
I love this one.
So I went back again and again. These steam engines just fascinate me. There's 4 of these steam engines in the basement that run the mill. And I was trying to get the shot right. and this kid walks in. I couldn't believe it. with the lumberjack boots, he's wearing suspenders. I mean, he obviously was a son of one of the volunteers there. So I'm very grateful. He made my shot.
Love the hat.
Yeah,
I hope you
love that.
send him a copy.
Yep.
Great
He's got
shot.
the biggest feet.
He does have big feet, you're right.
Doesn't it have sort of a Norman Rockwell feel to it, though?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
does.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Really does.
Those might be his dad's boots.
Could be. Yeah.
I love the repeating red too. There's like this triangle of red that's really cool.
Mhm.
Beautifully done.
Yes.
Thank you.
Congratulations. First place, Anne.
Yay!
Yay.
Well, I'm
Gorgeous.
surprised. Thank you so much for the award. I've always really enjoyed this tree. It's out at the Grove of Old Trees near Occidental. And I've worked on it several times and didn't quite get the feeling that I wanted to, but this last time I felt like it was done finally, so.
Good
Anyway,
job.
thank you.
Definitely
That's
magical.
beautiful.
Magical.
Yay.
Yeah.
Congratulations. And very interesting timing here tonight. Best of show tonight is
Yay! All right, Anne.
Congratulations.
Oh my God. Thank you so much. I'm totally shocked.
Well deserved.
Beautiful.
Beautiful field.
Wow.
Thank you, Charlie.
What a night.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Charlie.
Yeah.
Charlie.
Great images, everybody. That was very, very entertaining to see.
Yeah, it was really fun.
Yeah, really beautiful.
If
Thank you,
anybody
Siraj, for the titles.
Yeah.
Oh, you're welcome.
Good
It
job.
was, I love doing that.
Great.
If anybody wants to see how I add that pinstripe border, I can show you real quick some ways of doing that in Photoshop. If not, that's fine too.
Sure.
I'll go.
And there's
Oh.
my vat of indigo.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go,
Are you-
Indigo.
I can show you. I show you real quick, but this is. I'll go ahead and share my
See y'all
screen.
Sunday.
Yeah, see you Sunday.
Okay, so you see the still life image here,
Yes.
right? And I can add a border like like this. So the way I do it is actually pretty simple. Is I do the Command A, Control A, select all. That's all I did. Select all. And under select, I collapse, contract the selection 16 points, pixels.
Oh,
So it
interesting.
just brings it all in a little bit.
Interesting. Yeah.
And then I just go ahead and add, with that selection active, I add, it doesn't matter what layer. I just add a layer. And that just puts that, now here's my mask. And you can, it's hard to tell because it's black here, but I'm going to invert the mask. And now my mask is black except for that really white border. All right. So I've got a mask. Now what I'll do is I'll come down somewhere into the image and I'll just pick a color that's a color I want to carry. Maybe here. I got a sort of a brownish color here and I can change that easily. But I just select that color and then I add a solid layer with that color. And now I take the mask from here and bring it down there. And now there's that border. But when I click on this, I can change that border to be whatever color I want or whatever intensity I want. Maybe if I wanted a reddish border, I can make it intense. I can make it really light. Now I can blend that border to be just what I want to highlight the image. And so in this case, I throw away the layer I don't need anymore. And so that's how I add the border. But I like this way because now if I change anything below it, any of those layers below it, the changes occur. If I use this FX function, which has the stroke in it, it's going to add it to a fixed layer. And now when I make changes on below it, I've got to redo it again. So I like the flexibility of doing this. I like doing that. And again, when I have images that are predominantly black on the edges, like this one is, I put that border in there because I want people to see this way. I don't want
Really
people.
nice. That's really nice, Charlie, and especially using the stroke way, and then you do something else and you end up with blotches in the stroke all over the place. And
Yes.
and this is fabulous. Thank you.
This is just simpler. Yes, go ahead.
I don't know who spoke.
Oh, okay. So I thought so. So yeah, to show you, yeah. You know, I started out with the stroke there, and I just, you know, there was blotches in the bottom that wouldn't work, and if there was a mask there, it interacted with a mask in weird ways. And this way was just sort of straightforward, and it's on its own layer. And like I said, I can always go back and modify it to a different color or intensity. And let's say I like that color here, but I wanted it to be less intense. I could just change the opacity of that layer. So there's a lot of things you got control for to get it done right. And so you can tailor it just so it's the way you want it to be, subtle. You know, so here's an example where I added one that's, I wanted that pink or that purple. So
You always work on a black background?
I've set my Photoshop up that it has a black background.
Okay.
That's just my setup in Photoshop.
You're a great teacher, Charlie.
Yeah,
Yep.
thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you for the
Good
judging
seeing
and
you.
everything.
Yeah,
and the
great evening.
comment.
Thank you.
Good comment.
All right. Well, I'm glad you all enjoyed it, and I'm glad to
Again.
share the evening with you guys.
Have a good evening.
Great.
Thank you so
Ditto.
Bye,
much.
everybody. Good to see you.
Good night.
Night.
See you some Sunday.
Night. Thanks very much.